Welcome to another installment of Casual Click Tactics. We're going to take a look at House of X. Now that it's been out for a couple of weeks, I've had a chance to kind of mess around with some combinations here. We're going to take a look at first a Crocon Revival team that I wanted to feature because I guess it's kind of budget because it doesn't have any super rares, chases. It does have two figures from Fast Forces, which is the Wolverine, X-23 Wolverine, from the Fantastic Four Fast Forces at her 50-point level. Spider-Man also at his 50-point level, but this is the one from the Fast Forces for the Spider-Man and Venom Absolute Carnage. Also at his 50 points. So we're going to take a look at starting with Wolverines. Got inspired to kind of make this team because they both have the Fantastic Four team ability and the X-Men team ability, which is pretty cool because they have short dials. Both of them only have 4 clicks because this one's at her 50-point level. So maybe that Fantastic Four team ability will definitely come in handy. Spider-Man and Sunspot are both wild cards, so they can copy that team ability as well for some extra heals if they need to as well. And of course, if things go wrong, we've got Marvel Girl here with the Crocon Revival trait, which is for all characters with this trait, when a friendly standard character with the X-Men keyword and a lower point value would be KO'd by an opposing effect, you may instead choose to turn that character to its starting click this game and place them adjacent to a friendly character that can use this trait. If you do, your opponent scores that character and generates a bystander on this card of their choice, adjacent to any of their characters. Your opponent scores 10 points for every bystander they generated this game via this trait, regardless of source. Very wordy. We're going to break that down to show you how this team, I guess, is supposed to kind of work together. So let's just go ahead and set up a scenario here. I've already got one started where Blob is going to make an attack. And unfortunately, he's going to hit hard enough to KO one of our Wolverines here. So, okay. So this Wolverine is now KO'd. What happens with the Crocon Revival is when a friendly standard character with the X-Men keyword and a lower point value would be KO'd, which she is because Marvel Girl is at her, she's the 80-point uncommon from the set. She's 80 points, and she actually costs more than everyone. The highest, second highest is Sunspot here at 75 points. So she's able to successfully revive everyone, which works great for this team. Continuing to read. You may instead choose to turn that character to its starting click this game. Okay, so this one, it's the 40-point X-23 from the Fantastic Four set. This one is the one from the Fantastic Four Fast Forces. This is the one that has 2 starting lines. So if this one were to have gotten KO'd, because she has that 2 starting lines, it's very important that you remember that it says return it to its starting click this game. So if she started at her 50-point click, she needs to start at her 50-point starting line. And place them adjacent to a friendly character that can use this trait. Okay, so this Wolverine got KO'd. Is going to get brought back thanks to Crocon Revival, and I'm going to place her there because I have to place her adjacent to someone with this trait. If you do, your opponent scores that character and generates a bystander on this card of their choice, adjacent to any of their characters. Okay, so they'd get the 40 points that they got for knocking out Wolverine, X-23 Wolverine. And on top of that, they get their choice of bystander. And these bystanders, I don't know if you've seen them yet, but they're actually really good. So it is kind of a double-edged sword regarding Crocon Revival because, you know, you kind of don't want to give your opponent some of these pretty powerful bystanders, as you can see. Especially considering, you know, that if it's still your opponent's turn and this was the first action they've taken, they generate a bystander. That means that they could also use them against you that same turn. So you may want to be careful with that. So because I'm showing you how it's going to happen, X23 here, Wolverine, is already back. I'm going to return her back to her starting click because I was supposed to do that. There we go. So now that she's back, let's go over the last trait here, the last sentence. Your opponent then scores 10 points for every bystander they generated this game via this trait, regardless of source. That's the important part to remember too. So they also get an additional 10 points for every bystander they generate, and it keeps adding, 10 for every one after. So the second one would be 20, the third one would be 30, and so on. So it's kind of risky, kind of chancy. So I think that it could work well with this team because of the blades, claws, fangs that both of these Wolverines bring to the table. With Crocon Revival, Marvel Girl can keep them in the fight. With the Fantastic Four team ability, Sunspot and Spider-Man can heal off of them, getting KO'd. Sunspot as well has a special power on his leadership, which is once per turn for all friendly characters with this power. When another friendly character that shares a keyword is given a second action token, after resolutions, you may roll a d6. 4 to a 6, heal that character 1 click. I think that'll help a lot, especially like I mentioned earlier that these two Wolverines have very short dials. Any little bit helps. Anything that we can do to try to heal them back up and keep them in the fight. Prevent them from dying, and even if they die, they'll come back anyway with the Crocon Revival. Like I said, it's maybe it's not for a competitive play, but definitely does look like a lot of fun, a lot of synergy that we have going on here. Can't wait to get this on the table, try it out, see how it works out. Next, we're going to take a look at Juggernaut, the super rare from House of X. If you've seen my recent unboxing, you'll know that I pulled Juggernaut here, and he did look very formidable when I first got him. I think I was a little surprised just how much power, how many special powers and traits he had, such as, he has protected outwit. He has a stop click at the end, Battle Fury, and that actually, within 4 squares, he can stop characters from using stop clicks, leadership, or perplex. So, he had a lot going for him. On top of that, don't forget the mystical helmet gives him colossal stamina, so he can keep going. Of course, right? What can stop the Juggernaut? Juggernaut can reduce penetrating damage as well. So it's kind of like exploit weakness. Psychic Blast don't work. Outwit doesn't work. Within 4 squares, perplex doesn't work. There's so many things that he had going for him. And just taking a closer look at him, talking tactics wise on how to take this behemoth out. Of course, one of the more obvious answers being Pulse Wave. Pulse Wave, of course, says range, half range. It's improved targeting, ignores characters, and can make range attacks even though they're adjacent to other characters. Other characters within range can't use powers or abilities for this action. Make a range attack targeting all characters, at least one of which must be opposing within range and line of fire, using their printed defense values. If more than one character is targeted, each hit character is dealt 1 damage instead of normal damage. So of course, you don't want to ping away at a behemoth like Juggernaut. So you want to try to always position yourself to make an efficient pulse wave attack where you're only targeting the Juggernaut here, like his teammate and also enemy Pyro, who's got pulse wave with 11 attack. He only does 2 damage, but still, it's better than 1. And it's, just an example of one of the ways that you can get Juggernaut is to make sure that if you're only targeting him, as long as you're within 3 squares, you'll be able to make the attack. And of course, as I mentioned, Pulse Wave with other characters within range can't use powers or abilities for this action. So his Impervious will do him no good, or any other damage reducer he may have, except for the stop click, of course. Pulse Wave doesn't get around his stop click, but it will help him at least somewhat batter him. So you can make a dent in him slowly but surely. Other ways to deal with the Juggernaut is, of course, Blades, Claws, Fangs. He doesn't have Invincible, which, Invincible, where Invincible would reduce the damage taken by 2, can also reduce penetrating damage and takes a maximum of 3 damage at once. So because he doesn't have Invincible, he only has Impervious. And Impervious, of course, reads, reduce damage taken by 2. When this character would take damage from an attack, you may roll a d6. 5 to 6, damage taken is reduced to 0. So, and I mentioned Blades as a, as a good option because there's a possibility of you being able to roll a 6 on Blades, and then of course Juggernaut not being able to hit his Impervious roll and actually being able to take 4 damage. And compared to something like Invincible where he would cap it at 3, but because he doesn't have that, I think Blades works just a little more effectively on Juggernaut as well. And there's other ways too, like you can at least somewhat try to slow him down, since the only way that he can ignore characters on movement is if he uses that power. Once he starts, he can't be stopped. Charge. When Juggernaut uses it, you may choose to not have his speed. If you do, he can use improved movement, ignores characters, and can only move in a direct path. So, without him activating his charge in a direct path, you can easily just throw a character in front of him that has plasticity, like his other teammate, Blob here, who happens to have plasticity on his 3rd click. And that means that if he tries to break away, Juggernaut is still subject to the, getting the -2 to his breakaway roll because he has plasticity. And the only way he can get around that is if he activates that power, which then can also be a little limiting, because if you're moving in a direct path, sometimes, the enemy is not in a direct path, the one that you want to target. Like in this example here, we're going to set Elixir up right over here. So now, if we want Juggernaut to activate this power, he needs to move in a direct path. Which means he can move diagonally in a direct path, or on any one of the sides. In any of the directions, or diagonally. And as you can see, we're going to try to attack Elixir. There's no way that we can get to him with this terrain here the way that it is. So it does require some tactical positioning as well, on top of trying to use Juggernaut's weaknesses against him. So I hope that helps you deal with Juggernaut if you happen to be having problems with him. The next character I wanted to take a look at is Maggot. Maggot was another super rare that I pulled out of that unboxing that I did recently for the House of X. And I first saw him, I was a little skeptical. He looks a little fragile. But Maggot here is, for 40 points, he's actually a pretty great bargain. I'm not going to lie to you. He's been doing great in every game that I've been making teams with him. So I figured that if you do have Maggot, because he has so many traits and abilities, I figured that it would be a good character to review and kind of explain how he works. So starting with it's kind of gross. Free, generate an eeny or meeny bystander unless Maggot's bystander of that name has been KO'd. Each has max 1. Okay, so we're going to just generate these for the first time this game, eeny and meeny. This right here will be our eeny bystander, which is that one right there, the one that has charge, combat reflexes, exploit weakness, and a trait. When they both have the same trait, it says when eeny hits, give it a food token. And meeny has the same trait, external mouth, but he has a different power set with charge, poison, and combat reflexes. We're going to focus on eeny here because eeny, I think, is the more aggressive of the two thanks to that exploit weakness. So we've got our eeny token there, and I'm going to get someone here that has some sort of damage reducers. Okay, here we go. We've got Exodus at his 175 point level. Starts with 18 defense with invulnerability. So Maggot here generates his eeny token. Eeny has charge. We're going to charge and attack. After you make that successful roll, hopefully, eeny here gets a food token. We're going to just go ahead and place that on the card. Keep track of how many food tokens he has. So we're still not done with Maggot's turn though. By the way, he did generate a token. I'm sorry, he did generate a bystander. This bystander managed to hit Exodus for 2 damage. Because of exploit weakness, got around his invulnerability. So he's already done the it's kind of gross part. So now we gotta go, but it's how I live. Free. Remove an adjacent eeny or meeny bystander from the map. If you do, remove all of that bystander's food tokens and give them to Maggot. Okay. So we need to be adjacent. As you can see, Maggot is not adjacent, but he starts off with sidestep. So let's get him over there. Free action, sidestep, move 2 squares. There we go. Okay, so now I can activate it because I've removed an adjacent eeny or meeny bystander from the map, and then we're going to get his food token. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to remove eeny from the map, get his food token, give this to Maggot now. Now that Maggot has that food token, let's see what he can do with it. My digestion is weird. Free. Remove a food token and choose 1. Heal 2 clicks, or this turn Maggot can use charge and modifies his combat values +1. You know, and then just capitalize on the attack. If you want to be aggressive, just remove that food token right away because it's a free action. Now he still doesn't even have a token because everything he's done has been free actions. And Maggot gets the attack with his +1 combat boosts. As you can see, that turns his 10 attack to an 11 attack and his 3 damage to 4 damage with probability control. Now he's free to make that attack on Exodus with that charge being granted through the My Digestion is Weird trait. Pretty interesting character. If you have him and you're a little confused about how, you know, I guess how to use him a little more effectively, a little more efficiently, I hope this helped you and understanding all of the wordiness that comes with Maggot. That's it for this particular episode of Casual Clicks Tactics. I hope you got something out of what I'm trying to help you, which is to slowly become a better player and understand the game slightly more. Use my 15+ years of experience, pass it down to future generations, and hopefully they can go on and teach future generations, and so on and so on and so on. That's it for this one. I have more Mutant Madness coming up not too far from now. So make sure that you like and subscribe. That way you're notified when the next video goes live. As always, thank you so much for watching.